We have attending by video Thaddeus, Eric, and also Eric Dre, who we've asked to join us.
Hey, Eric.
Eric?
Hi, guys.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well. Nice to see you.
You too.
So first item on the agenda is public comment. There's nobody in the room. I don't think there's anyone on video.
No hands raised.
Thank you. So we have no public comment. And then we'll move to item 2 on the agenda, correspondence. So we've received, Mike, notice of intent for 8 Kayaskansa, thanks, Road. And so we have to schedule a hearing for that. Mike, is the intent to demolish the building? Is that what that was for? I didn't read the application yet. I'm sorry.
Not the entirety.
Not the entirety, okay. That's was my understanding after talking to Thaddeus, so that's a good thing. Okay, so for the purposes of this meeting, all we really need to do is schedule the hearing?
Yes, there's 2 discussion topics. One, the most pressing, is scheduling within 45 days. Our next meeting falls just after that. So I would recommend, if it works with scheduling, that we do the 6th of May, which is the first Wednesday as opposed to the second Wednesday. We can do a similar time. I think 3:30 would be available to start that.
What time?
3:30?
3:30.
As opposed to 3.
What day are you talking about?
May 6th, the first Wednesday. Our general meeting day would be May 13th, which would put us over the 45, we put that 47 days.
I don't know, let me look.
I know when I
I
discussed.
know I'm away May 6th, but I could probably call in.
What time are you talking about? I have an off-Cape doctor's appointment that ends at 1:10. I could probably, is it Dennis? Probably could be back at 3. What time are you talking about?
3:30.
It's gonna be tight, but yeah.
We could also do Monday, May 11th. That is. the
Oh, wait,
day-
let me, excuse me, I was looking, April was on my calendar. So you said May 4th?
May
Sixth.
6th or May 11th.
May 6th is a Wednesday, right?
Right.
Oh, it's first.
Trickier thing about the 11th is town meeting is that evening, so it would make for a long day.
I'm fine for the 6th.
All right, so let's,
6, everybody, yeah, so 6, that sounds good, all right. Bruce, we're talking about, we have to do a demolition delay hearing in the week. The next meeting would normally be on the 13th, that's too late for the 45-day window we have, so we're talking about moving to May 6th. For this.
Understood. Well, I will be out of town, but I will try to call into the meeting.
Okay,
I'll
great.
make sure you have the Zoom numbers.
Thank you.
Mason, I'm sorry, what time did you say?
3:30.
3:30.
And do we need to visit that site?
I don't know if we need to do an official visit, but maybe we can individually take rides by.
Sure.
And I presume that will
Michael,
cancel.
I have nothing to add, but
Yes.
my family owned the house for 80 years.
Right.
So I don't know if that presents a conflict of interest or not. I'm happy to participate, but
What aspect of that property are they demolishing?
I think before we get into the
yes,
details.
as far as I know, it was the newer wing that was built in the 90s.
Yeah, no, I remember it well, yeah.
Yeah.
We really have it only on here to discuss the scheduling, but I think as far as your question, Thaddeus, a disclosure during the hearing would be sufficient? And then
Okay.
just to clarify, there's no financial interest still in the property.
No.
I think that is more than enough.
Okay.
And then later in the meeting, I don't want to hold up Eric, there was an accompanying request for information or freedom of information request that came in with the NOI. As far as how certain properties are determined to be on the town's property survey and the historical records for this property specifically. So I think it might make sense when we talk about chapter 106 today, if we spend some time on procedure as well as substance.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good. And I think we can clarify any confusion that comes from that. All right, the last piece of housekeeping before we get to the substance and get to Eric is on the minutes. Did anyone have any comments on the minutes from last
I
night's meeting?
actually did.
Oh, okay.
I can't recall if it was during or after the meeting. I thought it was during that the question about signage came up, and signage may be subsumed in some other topic we have, but I didn't see any reference to it, and what had been said at the meeting was, yes, that's on a future agenda. And when I looked at the agenda today, I didn't see it, and again, perhaps it's subsumed under another topic, but
I think it's part of the public awareness initiative, but we should clarify the minutes. So we can clarify the minutes to say that the discussion about signage is a topic that will be considered under the public awareness program. Will that be all right? And then we'll.
That's fine. I continue to have a specific interest in full disclosure in indigenous issues and signage related to that. There are two issues that are specifically on my mind. One is that the town of Wellfleet passed I don't know what to call it, a bylaw, that any indigenous person who visited any of their beaches, the admission fee was waived. And somehow a sign to that effect and a move in that direction would be useful for Orleans from my perspective. The other, it involves the herring run here, and the herring run being exclusively to the access of indigenous people. There's a big hoo-ha going on in Harwich about this. So again, I don't mean to delay or divert.
No, I think that's fine. We've been pretty good with the minutes. I think we can afford to postpone the approval of these minutes until the next meeting after we've had a chance to do a revision and recirculate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, so we'll postpone the vote on the minutes for the March meeting. So that moves us to point 4 on the agenda, and we've asked Eric to join us today. So I'm going to ask Eric to do two things. One, to give us an update on the Form B project and the RFP that was awarded. Tell us where he stands with that. And then on the after that, to start our discussion of the review of the various issues around the demolition delay and the inventory and stuff by explaining his survey and how where that came from and what it says. So Eric, the floor is yours. How are we doing Form Bs?
Hi, well, the project got a late start for a variety of reasons, but it's well underway at this point. I've photographed all 120 odd buildings and have started and well underway with the first batch of 20. I do them sort of in batches of 20, just so it's in process. And as I said to Ed independently, I definitely will not have this completed by the end of June. I think more likely it would be a half to maybe a little bit more than a half will be done by June, and so I anticipate more of an early fall completion date for all of the survey forms.
Eric, when you say you completed all 125 photographing, the 125 is the estimate that of the number of Form Bs we're going to get for that 40,000. Is that?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think the number is 120.
120.
I'll have to double check, but it's around that number. Yeah.
Okay.
So are you going to submit the billing sequentially as you get some done, or?
What I usually do is I bill in the batches of 20. So and I bill like a percentage, like 200 of the 300 for Form B. I'll bill with that draft completion of 20 forms. And I always wait, I never do them in final form until they're all finished, because oftentimes there's some sort of cross-fertilization that happens, that you learn about a property later on that's connected to one you did before. So I keep them all in draft form and then go through them all together at the very end and put them in final.
That's fine. Okay. And we
I
have a
should know
process.
this,
Yeah.
Eric, perhaps, but I'll just jump in with a question. I've got a couple, but this, when you are all the Form B candidates identified and you are just getting to them as you get to them? Or is there still sort of an outstanding evaluation of homes in Orleans?
I don't know if you've seen the survey plan that I completed in 2023, that was funded through CPC funds as well. The purpose of that, and I've done similar survey plans in a number of other towns, is to basically do what's called a windshield. Well, you print out a spreadsheet from the data assessor of all buildings over X years old, and then you filter in all of the information that's on Macris so that you know what has been surveyed and what the date of those survey forms are. And then you basically do a windshield survey. You go out and just drive up and down all the roads, and using my expertise in architectural history, I make my own assessment of whether I think something should be surveyed or not. And then that became the basis of the recommendations that we've been working on moving forward. So you'll see the column of recommendations that I have in that street index. I recommended what should be surveyed that has not been, and also recommended what has been surveyed before and needs to be redone.
Okay. And then we don't need to get into this now, but at some point in the conversation, I think a question that's come up is, what is the threshold here in terms of year for cultural and historical significance, or what is contributing? And that's what I think we need to be really buttoned up on, with our adversaries. It's like, there's a plan, there. And it seemed to be some confusion of that.
Well, and the text of the survey plan does lay out all of that. So the language is there for you.
Okay.
If someone sort of, is questioning.
Yeah. Well, at some point in this conversation, if you could speak to that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So anyways, that's kind of it for the update on the Form Bs, unless anyone had any other questions.
Anybody else on that, or should we move to the demolition delay bylaw conversation and the inventory? Let's go ahead, if nobody has anything on that. And Eric, maybe you could just, Mike, I'm not sure, it might be useful to put this, that up on here. Can we get out of the way? And Mike could put a page from the survey up, and we can look at that. And all the other stuff that I've passed around in terms of how many new, I did that thing on the status of Form Bs and all of that is driven off of this list, this survey that Eric did. Maybe Eric, you can start while Mike gets set up to talk about what the different statuses are that are on there and what it represents.
Okay. And hi, Mike, I haven't seen you in person myself, so nice to meet you. I can see the back of your head. But yeah, so this I don't know which version. Are you looking at the version that's listing things alphabetically or by recommendation?
By recommendation, I believe, is the one that we circulated for this meeting.
Yeah, let me just open my version of that one as well, just so. Okay.
I think it's after this
So
one.
on the first page of both versions, I just listed all of the area form letters
This is-
and names
Yeah.
and the dates those were done, just so that there's a reference because that's one of the columns that's filled in down below for individual properties, is did they fall within one of the areas that was documented. So the first recommendation batch are obviously saying that they're done. And in most cases, that is because the Form B is new enough that it is relatively up to date to current standards. And obviously, we've been doing a lot of inventory work, in the last few years to get to that place. So many of those have been done recently. One thing to note, I started to talk to Ed about that maybe is a little confusing, is that if you go down to like page, let me see my page numbers here. If you go down to where it says done and then there's a dash in the letter, you see that?
Yep, there we go. So this is something I didn't know until Eric and I talked today. But this,
So
what this
that-
means.
A few of the area forms were done or actually redone in the late 2010s by PAL. And as part of that, they included extensive, paragraph-long descriptions of some of the properties. The historical narrative piece was still more kind of a summary of the area, although it did reference certain addresses, but it didn't go to the level that you would typically see in a building form. But nonetheless, the description of the property is more or less done. And so, to my mind, for purposes of prioritizing survey work, I was kind of considering those to be essentially done. I think that's a conclusion that we should and could revisit down the road, because I still believe that there's real value in individual building forms existing for each building, especially ones of real historic significance, even if they are fairly well covered in an area form. I think the homeowners are they're going to be very interested to see the Form B for their property, and they're not going to sort of dig through an area form to try to find that information. And also, it has value in any regulatory processes that are undergone.
How many buildings does that reflect?
Let's see, it's
About, I mean, it doesn't have to be.
50 or 60, I think.
Yeah.
Of the
But
595.
the value for our purposes, the value for our purposes, a number of those did have building forms already. This gets into the definitions issue about demo delay in significant buildings. I think one of the values in my acknowledging that they're fairly well documented is that they would fall under that first paragraph of the definition of significant building. So they would be automatically considered significant without the commission having to take any sort of
Eric,
action.
my question was how many buildings about how many does that
You
reflect?
said like about 60.
So that number has not been part of the ongoing list of Form Bs that we would do, which would probably, if we chose to do one, which is a different discussion.
It actually has been, because when I summed up Eric's list, I didn't make a distinction between the done dash anything.
Okay, so then they've been counted.
So we've been counting them as done. Yeah, so in that 595 that I've been passing around, those are included.
Okay.
And then the next batch, it says redo, and that, it's sort of self-explanatory. Basically, you look at the column right before that is the date that the Form B was prepared, and anything sort of up to the 1990s are just wildly out of date. And a lot of things change, and most importantly, the ability to access registry records online and vital records through sites like Ancestry.com have made it much easier to go deeper than they were able to go back then. And especially ones that go back to the 70s, I mean, they're kind of useless, honestly, except for having a nice photograph of what the building looked like in 1979. So those are the recommendations to redo. And then scrolling down further, I said the pages are there, sorry. So yeah, scrolling down to page 13. That's when we start having the survey.
And so to explain this, as Eric explained it to me, when he put survey on here, he meant to do a Form B for these buildings.
Exactly.
So these were not, these did not previously have Form B. So when I call these new in the summary that I put together. So these are the ones that should have a Form B that don't have, that Eric is working on right now.
Right, yeah.
So, Eric, if a property were to come before us for consideration for either reno or demolition, and it did not have a Form B, how should the building department respond to that?
Well, this kind of, I mean, I suppose maybe it would be easier for us to sort of fully address the definition of significant building
Right.
to sort of answer that.
Yeah, do you want to put up the significant building definition, please? Yeah, so,
Use this?
yes, no, the next one, I think, yeah, this one, sorry, the one with the actual language. Yeah, so there's the actual
Yeah.
language from the bylaw.
Yep.
And so, in our discussion, Eric and I had this idea of a property survey. I've been saying, hey, we need a formal list, and we should do something. And Eric, gave me a perspective on it this morning that I didn't really have, which is that something that has a Form B and is registered with Massachusetts Historical Commission is effectively in that survey. So
Okay.
we don't really have to vote on those because
Okay.
that's the survey. It's been designated. It
Yep.
has so anything with a Form B, and I think you could argue even the Form A-J or L that Eric put together, those are in our survey and they're on file with the Massachusetts Historical Commission. So that's that list of 595. Sorry, minus the ones that haven't been surveyed yet. So there's about 150 of those, I think. I forget the number. But, so, anyway, I don't want to derail the conversation, the question you asked, Bill. So maybe Eric,
Yeah, so everything that has a building form, a B form, is automatically considered a significant building.
Yep.
And I think it's important that you realize you do not need to take a vote on that. That is just purely part of the definition under the bylaw. Then they have the option for you to do something with buildings that are built before 1920 but do not have a survey form, and you have the ability to determine that it is significant. And that is the so-called list that we are talking about. And the thought in terms of how to generate that list in the short term is all the buildings that I have recommended to be surveyed that are older than 1920, that could be a list that you could vote to say you consider historically or architecturally significant and are significant.
So my question, though, is more specific to, does the building department have at its disposal that list in order that when somebody comes to them for demolition and the building department at the moment can say, they don't have a Form B and it hasn't been surveyed and,
Well, that's why I wanted to just explain that this is how you could generate that list today, or a list today.
Okay.
And you're right, the next step is, because you don't have a list now, so the
Right.
next step would be to take that list and walk it over to the building department and
Okay.
explain to them what this means and how we would like them to use it.
Thank you.
But Eric, on your, I apologize if my questions are, they're obvious, but relatively new. Are all the homes listed, in the Form Bs, are all of them prior to 1920 or not?
No, it's a good question. Not necessarily, no. I'm not entirely sure where the 1920 date came from for the purposes of this bylaw.
Okay.
yeah, and it's,
And this is, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, Thaddeus.
I was just going to say, it's, it's obviously easier, from a, to kind of explain if you have a date, but I think, I've mentioned this before, I think there's some examples of really, valuable architectural homes, in the 30s and 40s, and certainly, in the late 60s and early 70s. So, but it's, But it gets, I think the bind we find ourselves in is having to kind of explain this without making it seem like it's convoluted.
Yeah, there are a bunch of issues here, and at the risk of trying to tangle things up a little bit, I think you raise a couple of interesting points. The 1920 is something that I think we would all like to see go away in a revised bylaw and be replaced by 70, a number like 75 years before now. So that would put a lot more houses. But I think even as written, this bylaw, that 1920 only applies to something that we're trying to qualify under B or C.
Right.
So we could put anything we want. We could, anything,
Right.
I think that anything that we decide, or that Eric or whoever we hire to look at a building decides meets the criteria, and we've got a written set of criteria, anything that meets that criteria can go on, have a Form B, and by virtue of that, be a significant building in Orleans. So we're not bound for that purpose, I do not believe,
So
by
they-
the 1920.
So theoretically, we could take this page, we should have numbers next time around, page numbers, but this page of properties not in the inventory survey, which has 9 before 1900, 84 from 1900 to 1926, between 75 and 100 years old, there's another from 2739 to 81, 40 to 49, 168, 50 and 51, 147. Theoretically, we could vote as a commission. I'm not suggesting we do or don't, but theoretically, we could vote as a commission to vote, single vote, all of them historically significant.
Theoretically, but there's one
No,
sort of.
no, you couldn't.
Well, wait,
Why?
hang on, let me, so I think what Eric was about to say is what I'm about to say. The thing that gets in the way of that is that Eric did not recommend those for survey. So they don't, by Eric's definition, those don't meet the criteria that they need to be. Is that what you were gonna say, Eric?
Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I was maybe I misheard what you, were you talking about only buildings that are older than 1920?
Yes, one of the, in that, one of the maybe, Mike, could you go to that, the page that Charles is referring to, I think is a little bit, is that right, it's after the, unfortunately, yeah, it's right up, it's either this, is that part two? That's part, we need part one. So I think,
It's this,
on part two, I mean, sorry, yeah,
it's this page here.
yeah, it's right above this, I believe.
Way above.
So what Eric did, yeah, this is it. What Eric didn't say, the first page in this,
But there's a summary, there's a single summary.
that's right, you're right, it's page one of this document. So what Eric didn't say, one more, yeah, one right there. So what Eric didn't say was that we had, what we put up of the inventory survey was filtered by the ones that he had either recommended or that had Form Bs. The rest of his survey contained all of these buildings.
No, I understand that, I'm talking about those buildings on that page.
Yeah, I know,
We
I'm
didn't-
saying that. The buildings that are, you're seeing here, that are in the properties that are not in the survey, Eric looked at and said they don't belong in the survey.
I understand.
Oh,
I don't believe we as a commission, and I was here then, ever went through that one by one or in mass.
Right.
And said we thought that was appropriate or not appropriate.
Right.
I don't think we are bound by a ruling, I could be wrong, but I don't think we are bound by a ruling that was done 7 or 8 years ago. And I think we have the ability, if we chose to, we have the ability to vote them historically significant and then could evaluate from there.
Well, let's ask Eric that question, if he's still there.
Yeah, no, I've already recommended this to Ed. I think it would be a good exercise for the commission to go through, again, only the buildings that, you can only do this for buildings that are older than 1920.
Right.
But for the ones that I did not recommend a survey, for you to look at them and see if you agree.
Yeah. But you're talking about one by one, and we couldn't just wholesale say everything on that list because it's old is significant.
Why?
I'm asking Eric a question if we could.
Well, because we don't know. We certainly don't. Well, some sort of decision would need to be made that you found each one of those to either be architecturally or historically significant, and if you haven't even looked at it, I don't see how you could make that vote.
So my concern goes back to my original question then. If we make a list and take it to the building department, then anyone who owns one of those properties, who came in for a demolition request, we would have to go out and examine it and defer to your expertise as to whether or not it was historically significant. Am I correct in that?
Can I jump in here just
Yeah.
because the appeal turns, and with the point that we are kind of commingling here is the yellow portion, and I'd like Eric to weigh in, is that it's a property that is on the historical property survey of the town and on file with
Right.
Mass Historical Commission.
Right.
There's an or after that too.
Forget the or.
That's the-
Just-
Well, you can't
No,
forget
I
the
can't,
or.
I can't. Here's the point I want to make. We need to have a distinction between the property survey of the town and what's on file with Macris, and how one, A, gets onto the property survey,
Yeah.
B, how it gets to the historical commission, and then C, ultimately, how it is on file with the historical
Yeah.
commission. So we need to have
Right.
all three of those
Yep.
things checked off before we even get to A, B, and C.
So let me clarify where I think we are with that. In 2023, a survey was done. That survey looked at all of the buildings in Orleans that were of a certain age and determined which ones had Form Bs, which put them on this list, which ones had needed to redo the Form Bs, they're still on the list because they have a Form B, and which ones needed Form Bs because they belonged on this list and they weren't there yet. So the first two categories are part of the historic property survey, uncontested, no ambiguity, because those Form Bs are on file with Massachusetts Historical Commission.
And just to answer, I think I know what, I understand what Mike is asking, and just on a more fundamental basis, I don't know how the historical commission in years past decided which buildings should be surveyed. I'm assuming it was just based on age, from the assessors, and they went from there, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, onward. Once a building form is prepared by a town, it always goes to Mass Historical Commission. There's no distinction between saying that you've done a survey in town and it didn't go to MHC. That always is what happens.
I don't want to be difficult here, but as we're pulling records for the request, how logistically does that happen? Did that happen? Should that happen? I don't think they're watching this and just absorbing it.
No.
Is there a mailing? Is there an upload? How does that happen today?
Today it happens that they ask, MHC has me print them out and print out the photos, and then also prepare a CD with the files and deliver that to MHC, and I deliver a similar product to the town.
So, and then MHC loads those onto their Macris database.
And is that because, Eric, that you're working with the town on the Form B project? Why are you the town's designated person to do that?
Because that's just part of my contract in preparing the Form Bs.
Okay, so it's part of the CPC project.
It's the deliverables, of the contract.
So if the CPC project were to go away, or was not active, does anyone in the commission know how this was handled without Eric or without the
This
Form?
commission would have to vote, would have to do it.
And is that how it,
If I can add my way back, Bonnie Snow would take out her Royal typewriter, and she would type the Form B, and you know the history. She would sketch out the diagram, and she would mail it in to MHC. So it was done on a voluntary basis. So I think over passage of time, Mike, and it's good you now nail this into workflow, there's been a gap. And I'll further go all the way back, Eric, for your background, and you probably know, when the bylaw was written such that an appeal came to the select board, and we took care of that last year, thankfully, I heard over and over again from the applicant's attorney, in the old days, we used to have a book at the building department. So where Bill was going is, can we really marry a workflow such that there is a list or something as a resource at the building commissioner's office? Because in the past, during the hearing, your chair said, just go to Macris. And I don't think that meets all of what your bylaw intends.
Well, Kevin, we should be able to, if we can come to an agreement of what is historically significant of this commission, we should be able to prepare such a list and put it in front of the building commissioner. I don't see any reason, hey, Eric's done, I don't know what's gonna be on that list by the time we vote on it, but that's another question. But once we vote on it, we should be able to type,
That would be wonderful.
yeah, I don't see any reason that shouldn't and couldn't be done.
So two things. I think Eric's point, and I think it's important because of, you know, where we are. Some things are already on that list, whether we vote or not. Anything with a Form B is there.
Right.
So that, I think, should be clear. But I want to just also get on the record, because I've had this conversation privately with Mike, or with Mike separately, that I think there should be a budget item in the town for survey, that we shouldn't have to rely on CPC grants to do this work. This work should be budgeted on a yearly basis for somebody to go out and, because as Eric has pointed out to me, these things change. They change in both directions. A house that maybe wasn't historically significant 10 years ago, or maybe even 3 years ago when the survey was done, you know, something might have changed, and that we're looking at it differently. Or more likely, somebody has taken a house that was historically significant and so totally changed it that we can't even say that that's worth, you know, dealing with. So anyway, I think we should have a budget item for that, and that would.
Would you see it within the building department, or where?
I don't know. I don't know who would do it, but I think the commission should own the task.
But I'm just,
Well, my only comment on it is, I mean, many towns use, you know, CPC funds to do this work, and you're coming very close to having a pretty comprehensive and up-to-date survey. You know, most of the lists that we're talking about generating today for buildings that have not been surveyed and were built before 1920, they will have been surveyed by the time I complete this consultancy.
Yeah, I think though, that, you know, getting back to Charles's point, we've got a list of like 400 houses here that you didn't recommend for survey, and I think, Eric, you've said this to me, that you know, that was the day you did the survey, that might change. So I think, you know, with a set of buildings that large that are not in this survey, that are old, it might be worthwhile to have a fresh look at this. And even if we, you know, even if we don't, having something in the list that says we're going to look at Form Bs over time, I think is important. That we should be able to update these Form Bs without having to rely on getting a grant from CPC.
I mean, I'll say two things. One, I mean, I think it's going to be rare that you find a building where I did not recommend it for survey where you decide you do want to have it surveyed. It wasn't like there were buildings that were architecturally significant that I said, well, you know, I mean, if there was some architectural merit to them, or they were in a context, a setting that seemed to be of meaning, I would recommend them for survey. So I'm pretty confident that a very high percentage of what I said should not be surveyed, or had no recommendation, that you will agree with that.
So I think that's an important point, because you know, we're all looking at this list of, I think it's close to 400 properties that, not all, some of, that includes ones that are only 75 years old, so not the 1920 number that's in the bylaw here, but even the ones that are not, I think there's a couple of hundred of buildings that are built before 1920, say, that you're saying, Eric, you're pretty confident that we shouldn't try to consider those as significant, even though they were built in like 1900.
Right. And that's why I annotated each entry, and I didn't want to sort of be insulting in terms of how I worded my sort of thoughts in the street index itself. So when I would say like post-war, traditional, or ranch, or what have you, I was basically saying it's just kind of an average house of no particular interest.
Yeah.
right.
And if it said cottage, that just meant, well, it was just a very small cottage, again, of no particular, interest. I mean, or sometimes I would say that it was hard to see. So, I mean, I would try to begin to give a reason for why I said had no recommendation. To me, the bigger bulk of work that is important to do is to redo the Form Bs that are older. Like I just was, in doing my work, I was doing some survey work today in Orleans, and I looked at a form from 1979, and there was literally no writing. There was no entry in the architectural description section or the historical narrative. There was nothing.
Yeah.
So, it basically is not.
I agree with that, and I hope we can continue to go to CPC to get funding for that kind of work until it's done. So I agree with that part of it, but, even where you say there's a case, well, maybe, it wasn't that visible, well, that might be a good reason for us to actually go do some, more due diligence on that particular. I guess what I'm trying to do is get the commission comfortable with the fact that there are gonna be a whole bunch of houses that were old that are not significant.
And even that, I wanted to just add, as far as looking at what 106 could or should be, is there ever an instance where something is on file with the Mass Historical Commission and is not on the Historical Property Survey?
If you're talking about Form Bs, I think the answer is no.
I'm just using the words that are in the bylaw.
Then yes, because Form As, there's a lot of houses that are on Form As. When Pal did the Form As that Eric was talking about, they put a lot of houses that were just in the area that were not significant in any way. So there are a whole bunch of those properties that were built, very recently that that have Macris numbers but are not historically significant,
So
unfortunately.
that's the other point that came up in the hearing, is what is actually on file with the Historical Commission? Because if that is the case, or if Form A or an area equals on file, then you rarely get to A, B, and C, because we have areas for most of those properties already.
I don't know the
Maybe not
numbers.
most.
Mike, you raise it, it's a tricky thing, because, I think the commission needs to be genuine about whatever lists they generate. But if they wanted to, according to this language, they could say that every single building referenced in the area form is also, by definition, a significant building under this bylaw. And I don't think that's what they should say, because some of those buildings were not researched at all in the area form, or were not particularly old. So that's why the area form part is a little tricky, but.
So that's
But I do-
one, and then actually just using the terms of 106, the commission would be making the distinction that it's preferably preserved. The definition determines what's significant, so
Right.
on survey and on file, and then you would determine preferably preserved. So
Right.
I think there is, so the 2 points ultimately I want to get to with 106 is an understanding of what we have on file,
Yeah.
who's responsible for what, and what definitions are tied to each term,
Yeah,
and what we actually want it to read, and how the workflow should be going forward.
yeah.
And
Let me-
your example of A versus B, it's not in here, but that needs to be clear.
It does, because let me give you the risk. So the reason that we can say something is historically significant is there's a set of criteria that is used to look at that. Eric alluded to some of them, architectural significance, or if we say, oh, everything on Form A, we're gonna call a significant building, and then somebody goes to one of those and finds one that has none of those characteristics, it's gonna put everything at risk. So I think we need to get away from the idea that just being on a Form A and even being on a Form A and being old is not necessarily safe. And that's. So I think we do need to get to a point where something, it should be a Form B, and if we don't have a Form B yet, we have a gap. And I think Eric identified for me today that we could cover that gap by using C and voting on those buildings that he called survey, that in other words, that are in process of getting a Form B. Those are all historically significant, and anything, the bylaw first limits it to the ones before
And
1920.
I'm interested in how we cover the gap of what's not on his list.
Well, I think what Eric is saying is there is no gap, because what he's saying, what's not on his list is not historically significant in his view.
Okay, once again, this commission never
Right, I hear
dealt
you.
with that one way or the other.
I hear you. So.
And there's a number of properties that go, some of them 75 years and younger, that maybe every single one of them are not historically significant. I can tell you, this commission never opined on that one way or the other.
Right, so my thoughts on how do we address that, Charles, is what I said, which is we should have somebody that does a survey on a regular basis, so that we can go look at those buildings either in different eyes or a fresh look, and say, which of those buildings do belong in our list?
But that's long down the road. That's long down the road. In the meantime, any of these properties that are on this page that come up, there'll be an argument that they're not a Form B and therefore they are not subject to demolition.
There wouldn't be an argument, they're not subject to demolition.
Well, they wouldn't be if we voted them historically significant. If
Yeah,
we vote them historically significant, they would be they would fit the definition of a historically, of a,
I think that's true, I just think there's, the reason for naming a building historically significant can't just be that it's old, I don't think. I mean, maybe we can say
but
that.
this commission never,
Well, there were other-
okay. First of all, there's no
Well-
money for Eric to go through and relook at these. There's no money at all in the budget.
Right.
And there won't be anything until June of next year at the earliest, depending on what we put through for CPC. So what do we do in the next 18 months?
Is it possible I mean, this may be bureaucratic, but is it possible to just be made aware as a commission when, let's say a demolition request comes up of a building that is of a certain age that we know, and then there is, the potential for us to, to have a closer look?
I don't think we can do
in
anything
addition to
about
the
it.
Form Bs?
We
Yeah,
can't do
it's
anything
too late.
about it if we have not voted it historically significant or it's on a Form B. Even if we're aware of it, we can't do anything about it.
That's right, because the bylaw says it has to have previously been voted significant. If it's not a significant building, by the time it gets for the demolition request, it's too late.
It's over.
Yeah. So I guess, Charles, I hear what you're saying. I think, personally, I have a problem with the idea that Eric would have designated some of these buildings as not worth preserving, and then we decide we're gonna preserve them anyway. I think it weakens our argument for the buildings that we do think are important. If we are wholesale saying everything that's old is important, I think that makes it harder for us to stick to, saving the buildings that are worth saving.
Of the ones that are at least 100 years old, which there's 93 of them on this list, we have no money to have that evaluated. We don't have the time or the ability as a commission to go out and evaluate it.
But I think Eric is saying they were evaluated in 2023.
Was each and every one evaluated? And what were the terms of the direction that was given by the commission at that time?
Well, Eric is here. Eric, you said you felt comfortable. I mean, are you, even for these 93 buildings over 100 years old, you're saying that by the criteria you used, you picked what you thought was significant?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just quickly looking myself. I can't remember.
We looked at, I pointed one out to Eric when we were having a conversation, one of the ones that was built before 1900. And Eric had to look it up, but he found the reason was that if there was anything built in 1850, when that building says this was on, I forget the number, Child's something. Anyway, Child's Homestead, there's nothing left of that building that was built in 1850. It doesn't look like an 1850 building, it looks like a 1945 building. So that's why it's not on our list, because there were 11 of them that you see on there that were before
So
1950.
I'm not
No,
comfortable,
I
but are
just-
you
I just-
comfortable
I
in
just
saying
sorted
every
out.
single one of them is not historically significant?
No, what I'm comfortable with is saying, let's define our list, and then let's go look at these and add them to the list if we think they're significant.
And we don't have, there's 93 buildings on here. We don't have the bandwidth to do that.
I understand that. We're taking a risk that it's gonna take us a year or longer to do that. And I hear you, there's a risk there, but I don't know, I think there's risk the other way too. If we just say willy-nilly, those are all significant.
In the meantime, if we don't do something, any one of those 93 buildings that come in for demolition will be demolished, and there's not a thing in the world we can't even opine about it.
Right. They won't even
When you're
come
talking about
here.
the 93, are you talking about 90 ones that are older than 1920?
26.
20, I separated
There's
26.
The list here say, I'm reading off this piece of paper.
Yeah.
And the list here says there were 9 properties before 1900 and 84 properties between 1900 and 1926.
Yeah, I picked 1926 because it was
Because
100.
if you actually look at them, I annotated, I said, no style altered, demoed, altered beyond recognition,
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
modest example. I gave reasons why. Short of your doing the work I did all over again, I'm not sure how you other than accepting my conclusions, I'm not sure how I'm not sure what you can do with that information.
Well, we could go, but we don't have the money to do it, but we could go out and ask you to revisit these with a fresh set of eyes and a clear set of directions from the commission. But that we couldn't do until June of '27. Because that's as soon as we could
Right,
get
that's
money.
right, yeah. That's probably true.
I
With either funding.
I could start to do that and just get a sense of how long it takes for me to, because I could just do it looking at the property cards, because the nice thing in Orleans that a lot of towns don't do is that, when you're in the GIS and they have uploaded multiple assessor photos, not just one. So
But
you
how are
can
you
really
gonna
get
get
a sense of
paid?
the
How are you gonna
property.
get paid for that work? We don't have any CPC money for that.
No.
Well,
I mean, could we maybe slightly modify the agreement that I'm working under to take a little piece out for me to do that work?
Would CPC let us do that, Charles?
Well, the CPC agreement was based on doing Form Bs. I guess you could argue that this is part of that work. You could argue that this is,
Sure.
that this is part, this is Form B, this is a Form B conversation. So, yeah, you could make that argument. I'm not even sure we'd have to, I'd let the CPC know, but I don't think it'd be an issue.
No, I think that's a good idea, to just read, and then, because I think it's important that you as a commission are comfortable standing behind these recommendations yourselves, and not just taking them from me at face value.
I'm also, Eric, honestly
In terms of
interested.
additional homes, what of the, like in the last, let's say, 75 or 100 years, are there a number of homes in the Form Ds from that period, or have they all been, is there more work to be done there?
I'm sorry, which building?
In the town, buildings that are, let's say, 100 years or younger, have we assessed all of those buildings, or is there still work to be done there?
No, I have assessed everything that up to 1975.
Okay.
And as a precursor, the reason why you typically you sort of choose 50 years because as a starting point, because that's how old the building has to be for it to begin to be possibly listed on the National Register.
Got it.
So 50 years has always kind of been the starting point for this kind of thing.
Eric, as I look at the addresses from 1900 to 1926, is there any thought that within the general conversation of preservation that things like Old Style and Cape and Ranch contribute to the sort of the culture of the neighborhood as opposed to being architecturally significant? I don't, it's a lot of these addresses are a mishmash of neighborhoods. Baxter Lane in particular strikes me. It has some old things on it which are, they're somewhat bastardized over the last century in large part, and are not significant only in that the neighborhood all looks like that. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, typically, like branches, for example, are just kind of scattered all around town.
Yeah, they are.
It's not like there's a neighborhood that had sort of a somewhat interesting, similar form of branch that was repeated, and so there's kind of a sense of place about this kind of colony of ranches. So I mean, unless there was, some compelling form to it that was unusual, I mean, just the average ranch, I don't think rises to the level where you'd want to impose demolition delay, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's a good point, because and it's not really maybe our area, but it speaks to scale. Because, when that house disappears and what's built in place of it, the square footage is greater and it lacks a consistency. And I, you know, that's a real epidemic, I think, you know, in the town.
And given ADUs and now we have wastewater in town systems that we're rapidly losing, as was just stated, the smallness, the scale, et cetera. That's all. No,
I think-
Charles
Well,
makes-
and that's why I didn't give a recommendation of no to that
Right.
list.
So let me-
I just gave no recommendation at this.
Eric, let me try to move this forward. There's a list here of a large number, I didn't add them up, but a large number of properties that are 75 years. It looks like there's like 300 or 400 of them on there. How, if we authorize you to use some of the Form B money to reevaluate them quickly, how quickly could you do it and how much would it cost?
I mean, I'd have to think about that. I'm not sure. I mean, not an enormous amount of money, obviously. But I mean, I have to give that a little thought.
But that may be where we need to go, because then we have our current list, we've dealt with this other list, and as a commission, we can say, and I'm sure there'll be at least one, there may be 100, I don't know what there'll be,
Well-
that will move to the list of things that should have a Form B.
So just for now, to be clear, we have two options. One is to write a Form B for something, that puts it on the list under what was in yellow on that definition. Or to say we're going to write a Form B on something, that puts it on the list under C. But to get on that part of the list, it's gotta be older than 1920.
No, it doesn't, there's
It does.
ors there, there's
No,
ors
there's an
there.
and before,
No,
after
there's
1920.
ors there.
No, no,
It's an
no.
and.
There's
A has an and.
A has an and.
It does.
The and relates, you can argue this, it's a legal conversation, the and relates to B, it doesn't relate to C. There's no and after B.
There's an
And
or,
it-
so it has to either be B or C.
Right,
But
and
and
B, and
1920.
B relates to A, and C is an or, and I would strongly argue that C is an or, and it doesn't have to be 1920 if this commission votes historically significant. I would strike, you know what, that's what they have lawyers for, to
Yeah, I
go
was gonna
through,
say,
but I
yeah,
would
we
strongly
can't argue it,
argue
yeah.
that that is not an and for C.
Lawyers would have to argue over that, because I
Well,
read
the
the
challenge,
other.
you'd have to get into legislative intent of, you know, of what, you know, back when this was adopted, and hopefully find some language about that. I suspect that that the or does connect B and C, but I understand it can be read either way, that's just the way it was written, unfortunately. I think for purposes of, I mean, for purposes of today, I think you can just generate a list based on my recommendation for survey of buildings older than 1920 and vote on that list pursuant to C. And then, you know, if we work under the premise that B and C are connected by that or, then that could argue for prioritizing doing Form Bs for buildings that you do want to get surveyed that are newer than 1920.
Or, let me ask a question, there are buildings, are there not, or maybe there aren't, tell me, there are buildings that are on the Form B list that are built after 1920?
Yes.
Or not?
No, there are.
Oh, yeah.
The
So
most
why
recent one
couldn't
is
more
19
buildings be put on that list?
No, they can be. They have Form B. If they have a Form B, then they can.
I understand, but they had to get, how'd they get a Form B? Because the commission voted it historically significant.
Yes.
There's no other way they could have gotten.
Right, no, that's right, but then you got you got the second part of the definition, and on file with the Massachusetts Historical
But
Commission.
they
So
how do they get on file?
by filing the
Or
Form
Form
B.
A.
And somebody voted to do that where it was after 1920.
Yeah, nobody's arguing we can't do it, we're just saying that until the Form B is done and filed, it's not there, it's not in the survey inventory. But in the case of C, we can just vote blanket that says anything that meets the criteria is now part of is a significant building.
And Mr. Chair, just a process question. This is all good. I think you're coming to a place of having some steps to follow, but a suggestion from a public process standpoint is if you do get to a vote of property, please write on your agenda, just like you do with demolition, disclose the address that you are voting on, just so the public has an awareness that you are putting them in this category. Allows them to participate or not, but don't just do Eric sent us a memo, carte blanche. They all need to be disclosed in my mind. And Mike, you might, want to
I agree
add
with you,
to it.
Kevin. I
But
agree with
just from a public process.
Why don't we direct Eric, not just anything after 1920, I do think those 9 before 1900 have to just be looked at one more time to make sure that there's no issue. And I do think the 84 between 1900 and 1926. But everything is, take a look and come back and say, it's all perfect. Or come back and say, you know what? We should probably add 1, 2, 3, or whatever it might be. Then as a commission, we can sit there and say that's on the list to get done. Then we can make a list up for the building department that has both the properties that are Form Bs and the properties that are to be done.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree, that's fine. There's one more category that might, somewhere in there, there's the analysis I did that has all the numbers of the Form Bs by status. Could you find that? I think it's near the bottom someplace. Because I don't think it's clear, this other group that Eric is talking about, that I want to identify here.
Just the sort of.
Yeah, so the ones that are, not this one, it's the one with the blue charts. Yeah, no, just above this. Okay, so if we can, yeah, right there, that chart's good right there. Yeah, this one. So there's 151 that, these are buildings that, on Eric's survey, they say survey. And these are the ones that he's in the process of doing Form Bs for. So these don't have Form Bs. Now, some of them might be on Form As, but not all of them, I don't think. So what Eric is suggesting is that we use the category C under our bylaw for any of these that were built before in 1920 or earlier, to put them on our list now. So we don't have to wait for the filing of the Form Bs. What that does is it gives us an additional, I don't know how many exactly, because like I said, some of these might be after 1920, but say it's 120 of them. That puts that additional 120 in with the 266 and the 180 that are already there, and we can do that today. Then those are
But in
protected.
theory then, do you have to move properties out of there once, Eric has worked on them more closely? Or
No, because all we're saying
they're all
is-
gonna be Form Bs?
No, all that means is that we've qualified them in the inventory under a different way, but they're still in the inventory, and they're just gonna stay in the inventory after the Form Bs get filed. Good question, but I don't.
I'm not sure we can do that today. I think Kevin's suggestion that before we move something from one status to another, that we should notify the public.
All right, then we should put that on the vote
Well,
for,
I'm a little, I mean, you don't want to get into a situation where where the property owners sort of feel like they have a say in whether their property gets documented. Because that's not how that process works around the state. You're able to document houses, and that's why you don't go on private property, and that's why that you're just documenting them. And,
But Eric, what's the difference between notification and
All-
approval?
And again, Eric, I'm a select board liaison. All I'm saying is list the property address either directly on the agenda or as an attachment of property so that the record is there. I'm not saying notify the property owners by a mailing,
right,
but
okay.
it allows them to read it, and if they're interested, show up.
your advice is to do that before we vote.
Correct.
Yeah, I would not vote on this today.
All right, so that we'll put that on for the next meeting agenda, and we'll
Attach.
attach, the list already exists. We have the list.
But I do think we should approve Eric looking at these other properties and coming back with a recommendation, so we can get this thing to closure within 1 or 2 meetings.
I'm fine with that, subject to, the proposal that Eric makes being, within reason and doesn't detract too much from our.
I don't think we should pre-direct him on what to do. I think we should get his opinion, and then we should evaluate it. But I don't think we should say, don't do too much, don't do too little. He should do what's right.
Right, I'm just saying I don't want to authorize it flat out today without seeing the estimate.
Well,
So,
then-
Eric, am I right in, if we're asked about, sort of what merits preservation, we can say, any building that is more than 50 years old that is seen as historically or architecturally significant. Is that fair?
Yep.
And then the other question I have is, and this may be in your work, I know it's in the individual Form Bs, but is there like one or two paragraphs that explain what or detail what architecturally and historically significant mean?
Could you go to the bottom?
Because-
please?
Yeah, it's right in your bylaw.
Yeah, there's a set of criteria in, sorry, it's not in this one. There's a set of criteria that the commission formally adopted at some point, Thaddeus, that
There you
is
go.
floating around.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so,
Yeah, I can't read that.
no,
I
that's
think-
just the definition. That's not the
Well,
criteria.
what I do in the Form Bs is under the architectural description, I will connect it to a form or style of building that is of significance, and then explain what features of that building
Exactly.
represent that style.
But do we have something like that for the town?
And for the
Like-
historical,
like-
oh, go ahead, sorry.
So something, in other words, one of the issues I think we're gonna face, or probably already do, is people just saying, well, like, just because, the state said this, or it exists there, what is architecturally significant? What are the, what is historically significant? And it seems to me like we need some concrete examples, whether it's, there's a Greek revival period, or, whatever the town, or illustrate something about, the town's association of whaling, or whatever. But it just feels like we need more real, like tangible,
We have something.
only like,
Has a set of
a paragraph or two to be.
But as soon
to be
as,
more-
as soon as you start detailing this as significant, anything you don't say, the counter argument is therefore not significant.
Well, it exists in the Form Bs on the specific homes, we ought to be able to do it for the town as well.
Well, the architectural
Well,
review
in
board,
each form, I also do a thematic connection of the significance of a property historically to the development of the town. So it's not just about,
Right.
X bought it and then X sold it, but that what kind of work they did, how they connected to the economy of the town, how that area's development was connected to a theme of development within the town, like maritime or resort-based or what have you. So I mean, it's about context. It's about understanding the context of the property.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I'm just saying it would be nice to have sort of 3 contextual bullets about the town of, that history and architecture, the architectural and historical significance of the town and what exists.
Well, I could generate a one-pager that sort of does something like that.
It could even be shorter. I just think we need to be better equipped
Yeah.
to be conversational about that.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, you guys are the face of preservation, so you're absolutely right that, you need to be comfortable talking about it. So yeah, I can whip something up.
Thanks.
Yeah, we have, it was in a document that I circulated a while back. There's a statement of policy that the Orleans Historical Commission adopted a long time ago that puts out, how we decide what's a significant building or what's significant, and has all these considerations. And the important caveat is something doesn't have to meet every one of the criteria. Only a single criterion could be enough to qualify a building. So I could circulate that again, but it's been a long-standing policy that this commission has had of how we're defining these things. So I don't think we have any issue over how, what we think qualifies. I think that's been pretty clear.
So, Mr. Chair, what that really is doing is, in your bylaw, and you would always want to go back to the black and white, Mike's got C1, where you determine historically, architecturally significant in terms of period, style, method, and association with the architecture or builder. You've just taken what you said in your past, I'll call it interpretation, as to what those mean.
Yeah,
But they always go back
to
to
the
this
bylaw.
line.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think, and you're right, Kevin, if we anchor it on this, that's the safest thing, and we should do that.
Because that's the power you have as a board to,
Yeah.
Charles' point is, you have the power to determine this, but always rely and be solid footing with this black and white in the bylaw. And of course, with outside expertise is always helpful.
All right, so I'm kind of at a loss for how we want to go forward here. I think we're going to direct Eric to provide that estimate to us to make that inventory that we've suggested. So I think that's definitely one action.
Eric, how long do you think it would be for you to figure out an estimate of what that would be?
Couple days.
Okay, so why don't I suggest that he does that, and we set up a subcommittee, maybe you and myself, Ed, to evaluate that, and the committee give us the approval the ability to make a yay-nay decision once we have that, so we can move forward.
Okay, so
I
you want
make
to,
that a motion.
all right, second?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor of what Charles has proposed as far as we're going to...
Do we have to do these since somebody's on?
Oh, since somebody's, yeah, okay, so roll call. Thaddeus?
Yeah.
Yay.
Bill, yes.
Yes, Charles Ellis?
Yes.
Bruce and myself, yes. Okay, so 5-0-0 for Charles and I to form a subcommittee to review Eric's repurposing of some of the Form B money to look at some houses that are not currently recommended.
And if we do that, I'll let the CPC know we've done that at the next meeting,
Okay, great.
which I don't anticipate a problem there.
All right, so that's one thing. I think the other thing that we've determined here is that everything on the 595 list, other than the new things that are not yet Form Bs, that inventory is already the inventory. We don't need to do anything, we don't need to take any votes. By virtue of the fact that it's on file and been designated significant, those properties have to come here before they, for a demolition delay review. The only exposure we'll have then between now and next meeting is these ones that have the new survey that haven't been done yet, that are not, because of that, are not on file. They don't meet the second part of that first criteria. We're going to do a motion to qualify those under sub-point C after we've published what that list is.
Just one quick question, Mr. Chair. On those, what I'll call the automatics that are already on Form B, and as Eric said, no vote needed, is the assumption that the building commissioner, if one of them comes in for a demo now or something, does the building commissioner just still get told to go to Macris, or are you in the interim going to provide him this list?
I think we could provide a list.
I think whatever you do, and I'm looking at Mike Solitro, try to formalize this workflow so that people understand that this is a change. Because to date, that's been a gap. And if you start to get in that routine, building commissioner can have that expectation. No doubt he's going to stamp it, say, as of, April 15th, this is the date until it's changed, so.
Well, I think the cover letter needs to deal with that
Exactly.
specifically,
Yeah.
that list is appropriate, is
Until-
applicable as of today.
Until
But
revised.
the Historical Commission may and has the right to provide a revised list at any point in time. I think that has to be part of a cover.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be opposed to putting all of the ones that we think are gonna end up on that list in there and saying, these are the ones we're working on, so it's clear that any day that he gets one of those, he should check with us to make sure we haven't, yeah.
So there is another question, boathouses.
Yes, I was gonna get to that, but let's finish.
Before we
Yeah.
leave this, Eric, I noticed there, at the moment, and I could be wrong, but 3 designated areas, some cottage colonies, et cetera. Is there any, or are you familiar with communities who designate areas? So we have Jackknife Point, we have
Mayflower Point.
Mayflower Point, we have Nauset Heights, we have different neighborhoods that are from I think a cultural perspective in town, very well sought after, and they're marketed differently for real estate purposes, investment purposes, etc. Is there any thought that structures within that need to be considered? New, old, does it make any difference?
Yeah, I'd have to look back on my recommendations in terms of whether there are some new area forms that should be prepared. Is that what you're thinking?
There were 3, I think, and there were,
Heights was one of them,
yeah,
Form A stand for Heights.
yeah.
But you could also do Rock Harborville.
Yeah,
That's another,
whole stretch. But it just strikes me that, and I'm not looking to, I mean, we're seeing properties be demoed and rebuilt with 7,000 square foot craziness, but that's just my opinion. I don't know how a community thinks about the bylaw for the preservation of that. Maybe it's a square footage, I don't know. I mean, Wellfleet and Truro have advanced those. I think Orleans has something about size, I'm not sure. But it's all just a thought.
I want to go back to make sure we cover all the things. Bylaw amendment, I think we've articulated here some of the things we want to do with another bylaw, one of which is to clear up that definition so it's a lot simpler.
Yep.
And we want to get rid of the 1920 as a fixed date and come up with a number which 50 years, 75 years, whatever we decide it is. But so I think those are recommendations. Are we ready, do we think, to try to come up with a draft bylaw, or should we push that out another meeting or two?
Well, what Eric's doing is deciding what would fit under the bylaws.
Yeah.
It's not per se.
No, this is a separate question. About amending the bylaw. It's gonna take, probably a year to do, or at least until the next, the fall would be the earliest if we could possibly get ready for that. Otherwise, it's a year from now. And we've talked about it. We've talked about extending the period of the delay. And I'm just asking if we're ready to put together a draft, or do we want to let that float for a while? Anybody have any thoughts?
There's a lot of work that's been done.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of making decisions.
Right.
The earlier commission, we chose to postpone it, but the earlier commission was recommending, I don't think 50 years, I think 75 years is
Yeah.
what they were recommending at that point in time. And they were recommending that it would be 18 months, and there's only one other thing. There were like 3 commas, or 3...
I think the definition was the other one. Do we want to clarify the definition?
The last one, we can do whatever we want now. We're not obligated for anything that didn't pass, but and there were different proposals made at different times, but what the earlier commission wanted to do was make the fewest amount of changes to the existing bylaw that possibly could be done to make it easier to pass it and do it. That's what, and I think that probably was a good decision. So if we start redefining the entire thing, that's gonna open up a million can of worms. I don't like the existing bylaw, but so be it. If we could just get it where it was 18 months and 75 years, and there may have been one other comma, one other thing that was on there, and that was it.
Yeah, I agree. I
I would
thought the one
suggest-
other thing.
Let me just say that I would love to see it, 24 months. But I think if the idea is that you need to do some awareness about the value of preservation, that, you don't want to go out right away and start talking about, further delays in the bylaw. You want to give yourself a chance to talk about some of the importance and the value of preservation, and then sort of lay the groundwork.
So it's,
I would argue we should get the bylaw. I don't think we need to wait until a long public education thing takes place on this. This is saying, our town ready, didn't Chatham just pass something, 18 months? There are a lot, 18 months is not on the edge of, is not what I'm saying, it's not going way out on a limb on something like that.
Well, I mean, you know how much capital you have, you're better aware of it than me, but my sense is that it's testing in the town. But, I mean, if the opportunity's there, go, I'm all for it.
Well, there's
I'm
no
just saying-
guarantee either way.
I think we just leave this on the agenda and we'll think about it some more. Maybe I'll try to draft those changes, but it sounds like there's nothing more we can do on it
And
today.
I think there is a draft, we just need to get it in everybody's hands.
Okay.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, I
That's the-
sent it to you, I mean.
You have it.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
is that-
it's-
is- oh, I'm sorry, I thought that one was the,
Those are the minor changes.
I thought that was the model, that's the draft?
They're both. in
They're
there.
both in there, okay, sorry.
I can do a better
I thought it
job of
was only the
separating
model.
them. I mean, one thing I recommend that is least is discussed is defining the term historical property survey of the town. A
Right.
definition of what that is.
Mhm.
Put a definition of on file with Mass Historical Commission. And, I mean, I've looked at A, B, and C now since you've made your argument. I think you can make a straight face, you could read them both. A and C, or C stands alone from A. I think you can make it. So I think that needs to be cleaned up one way or another. And when you say 18 months, it's not that big a deal. I just pictured that being the argument on town meeting floor without any public education. And why would I add 6 months? Like, you have to have that capital, or at least explain, elaborate why the change.
Well, and I think that if we do it, we need to go in front of the appropriate commissions, including the select board beforehand, so that we have partners to it.
And that's certainly one piece. The other piece is being able to explain to a group of 6, 7, 800 people what this commission does on a daily basis, because they don't know. And then why 12 months is not enough and 18 is the right number. And I think that's the target.
All right, in the interest of moving forward, I think we should quickly have a discussion about boathouses and then move on to the next topic. So I was discussing this today with Eric earlier today, and there is no easy way to identify boathouses either that are already on our list or that should be on our list. And in discussing it with Eric, there may not even be an easy way to go find them unless we do it from the water. You know, that you can't get, unless you know of a list, Bill.
Well, they have to be registered with the county. That's number one. And you can't get a new one. And so I think we can find them through the county.
But since you can't build a new boathouse, the only issue is, people just letting them fall into disrepair like the one on Meeting House River.
Right.
I don't know, I mean.
That's already, that's been through the demolition, and they have plans to replace it. They're gonna have to come back to us because it's been more than 2 years now.
So before we do anything else, then I think we should obtain the information we can get from the county on the
Yeah.
boathouses in Orleans, and then decide from there what we need to do.
Yeah.
Whether they're on our list because they're on properties that are already on our list or not. So I'll take that on as a responsibility, figure out how to, or maybe ask for help, Bill, how to get that.
Sure.
Where in the county, who in the county has that list?
They have to be licensed, and I think probably through waterways, I don't know, I'll find out.
Okay, that'd be great. All
I
right,
looked at a couple of examples of, in terms of property card records for. where
Oh, yeah,
addresses-
it would be on those as well.
Well, there was no photo of the boathouse and included, but on the one that I looked at, for example, it did say BO and then a date, like 1965.
Well, Orleans had everybody had to, in order to satisfy some compliant, apply for their boathouse to be both licensed and I think on registry with the county. So all the boathouses and docks in particular.
That's the key.
Yeah.
A dock is what drives the requirement for the license.
Yep,
I think the boathouse is a ancillary,
yep.
because not all docks have boathouses.
So we find out how many
Right,
docks
yeah.
there are on Pleasant Bay and on the Cove, and we can determine from there.
what about the other way? Do all boathouses have docks? Will they all be registered?
No.
No. So at some point, I was saying to Eric, we may want to put together another CPC proposal and get somebody to take somebody around in a boat.
Yeah,
And go look at the houses.
I've done that
Okay.
with 30 I think there are 38 boathouses on Pleasant Bay,
Okay, so that might be a project for the future.
some as large as this, some as large as this.
So,
Plumbing included.
all right, I think on that, we should close on this topic because we've obviously used a fair amount of time. I appreciate the discussion, I think it was really useful, and hopefully we've moved the topic forward a lot. Eric, thank you very much. You're of course welcome to stay for the rest of this meeting, but please don't feel obligated. Much appreciate your
I
time.
may sign off if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, good to see you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you guys, thank you, bye-bye.
Thanks, Eric.
While we were talking about 106, one thing I wanted to put on your radar as far as things that should be, just that you know is in there. 106 4C, I won't read the whole thing, but it talks about demolition by neglect.
Yeah.
Has that come up?
It has, I'll answer it for the past. It has come up, and the commission's never figured out a way of how to deal with it.
I'll read the first line because of that. If the commission has reason to believe through visual inspection or other means, pretty much the way that it's written, it is on the commission to inspect visually for these properties, which to me does not seem very likely. or
But I'm not
feasible.
sure what they could, what authority do we have if we
It goes
define
on to say you
something?
shall notify the building
There we
inspector
go.
and so forth.
Yeah.
But as far as practically whether that is
Yeah.
happening or should even be happening, that is the way the bylaw is currently written.
Well, I will tell you, there's been a number of things over time that has come in front of the commission that have been characterized as being demolition by
Yeah.
neglect. And we just haven't, and I don't know if we've gone into it in depth, but we haven't figured out how to deal with it.
I agree, we've had conversations, because it's really, when you impose the demolition delay, a lot of people just ignore, they don't do anything to the building, just let the building go anyway, because they're gonna demolish it in a year, so, but a lot of people come to us after it's already been neglected and say, oh, it's falling down, I can't fix it. So I think it's a real issue. Maybe it's another thing that we could, if we look to put something in the budget line, maybe it wouldn't be a lot of extra money to
There's
have
that-
somebody.
Wonderful old barn here. That's,
Do we have?
Everybody
do we
in
have-
town
do
has
we
watched
have the
that
authority-
collapse.
Do we have the authority, as we became aware of something, to declare it as demolition by neglect and refer it to the building commission? Do we have that authority? I don't know the
You have
answer.
the duty as part of that, is to inspect and report to the building inspector according to this, which, I just wanted to let you know that that's what this says. Because
I'm
it-
sorry, say that.
You have that duty as far as the ability to do more than notify the building inspector, I don't know. But the first line of 106-4C puts it on the commission to visually inspect and then notify the building inspector and the owner.
do you think, Mike, that it's incumbent upon us to periodically visit properties that we're concerned about visually from the street? And, I mean, a lot of people don't paint, they let things go, don't have the resources. And all of a sudden, there's a tipping point at which things become demolition by delay. And so.
Well, you got a good example on Brick Hill Road.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, one qualifier in here is that a significant building may be undergoing demolition by neglect. So this would not be the town as a whole, hey, you need to paint your house, it looks like crap. It would need to be, going back to the definition, but it's defined already as a significant building. So it's on that list of significant building, and then it's visually inspected. It is not drive around your car and say you need to paint your house.
Yeah, right.
You can go talk to Steve, I'm not done.
Is it a significant building?
Yes.
Oh,
I don't know if we have any authority to demand somebody
No.
let us in. We have to ask.
well,
Good
I
question,
think
more than it's
it's
worth.
more from the outside. Okay, anything else on that, Mike, before we move to CPC liaison update?
No, I think that
Okay.
makes sense.
Charles, anything to update us on from CPC?
Well, I went through the open stuff. The CPCs understands that the archaeological won't be until probably until fall, till it be paid, that's fine. They understand that Form Bs are gonna run past June, that's fine. And they understand that the public education may run, it won't be finished until about June. I notified all that, there's no issues with any of that.
Okay. And then just to my part on that, I confirm that the 2 projects we have contracts for, the funds have been properly encumbered.
Okay.
So they will roll over to next fiscal year.
Great. Okay, that's all good to know.
But the public education has not been, it's not under a contract or even a definition at this point
Right,
in time.
yeah, it's on the agenda, we'll get there in a second. Map of historic properties, Mike, I saw you included a map. Are we, is that up and running in anywhere that's, anybody can see, or? I didn't-
It's the last file.
Or is that just the one from the document that I sent around?
This is from the document you had sent. The
Oh,
reason
okay.
I left this on the agenda, I spoke with kind of our in-house GIS person, because it lies right now with the conservation agent, and it's just because he has the ability to manipulate or update the GIS and has worked with the vendor in the past. But it is fairly straightforward, and we went over what it would take to have a layer on the GIS of, again, once we define the town inventory, click a button, show me what's on there, and have it just light up. So once we can clearly define inventory, Form B, whatever we want to call it, we can have a layer for it, and then we can get it to the vendor fairly simply.
Terrific.
We have the information in CSVs where we could get it to them, so
Great.
that can be done pretty straightforward.
Okay, that sounds good. So, good. We'll try to clarify as much of that as we can between now and soon, next week. Okay, so the next item is the old items, and these are we've already had the Form B update from Eric, so we don't need to go into that anymore. I can update the commission on the archaeology project. On March 30th and this previous Monday, April 4th, the surveys, reconnaissance surveys were conducted on various OCT properties around Orleans.
37.
37? Oh, that's how many there are, you mean? Yeah, we didn't go on all of them. I went on the March 30th survey, and we started at 9 a.m., finished at 2, and covered several properties, including Henson's Cove, Woods Cove, Namaquoyett Bog and Woods. And it was fascinating. It was really interesting. One of the things, I'll just go with one anecdote on in Henson's Cove, the storm the winter storm we had uprooted several trees, as it's done, thousands of trees in the town. But in particular, on Henson's Cove, there were 2 trees that apparently were right above a shell midden, because they were toppled over, and there was this dense pack of shells in the right kind of soil. So it was really an interesting walk to see all that. I learned a lot of stuff about nature and things that had nothing to do with archaeology also. But it was really interesting. So anyway, I just wanted to say that project is progressing very well. We're going to do more reconnaissance work than was actually contracted for because it went so well and so quickly. OCT and the Native Land Conservancy folks participated from that, mainly Tom Karras, who is the staff person for OCT, but also Asa.
Do you know at the end of the surveys, will they be as comprehensive as some of these documents?
Yeah,
Or less?
I don't know how comprehensive, I've read one of these before. There will be 2, well, depending on how you count them, 3 outputs, 3 deliverables. There'll be the formal deliverable that goes and gets on file.
Right.
That can only be seen by archaeologists.
Yep.
There will be a redacted version that will be published on our website. And then
Okay.
there'll be a public presentation to this commission as part of that. So those 3 deliverables. Did you see the one that came out of, that Dan Zotto did?
Oh, yeah.
Would you say it was as comprehensive as one of
I'd
these?
say it's more scientific
Yeah.
than.
That's what I think you'll
These are
get.
meant for lay people.
Well, we'll get 2, but I don't think the one that Dan did for the lay people wasn't as extensive, at least he wasn't,
Yeah.
probably didn't cover, it only covered a square mile, so,
This
anyway, I
was
think
the
we'll get,
old one
yeah.
about the rocks and all of the grinding stones in Orleans and Pleasant Bay and the Cove and.
So we'll get those deliverable. I'm looking forward to it. That'll happen around September when the project completes. And then, so moving on to C, Thaddeus, do you want to talk about where we are? I know I sent Mike a draft RFP, but it was after the packet went out, so I don't know what the status of that is, whether we have to look at that for the next meeting or not. But we've put together a draft RFP. We decided to split the money, the 14,000 we have, 10,000 for consultant, and then 4,000 for an intern. So, sorry, Thaddeus, didn't want to steal your thunder there. Did you want to say anything more about that?
No, I mean, I think there's sort of two pieces here. One is tactical, and that is, using opportunities to, meet with people that we, need to align with about the value of historic preservation, perhaps populating, a social media platform or two with images and some conversation about the value of historic preservation. And then also, I think, and Mike and I have a little conversation about this, but there's, the other element is sort of talking through, okay, we know what the end goal is. The end goal is preserving more homes and more buildings in Orleans, but how do we get there? And so, and that's sort of like, I feel like we need some sort of conversation with a consultant, and not Eric necessarily, but somebody else about, okay, there is a longer demolition delay. There are historic districts. There are, ways that individuals can protect their homes. We need to sort of look at all of the ways to get where we want to go and decide sort of what the best way to do that is. And, the easiest, the one that creates least friction, or the most achievable. And so, so I think, I'm happy to work, over the next 4 months, with an intern, creating some content. I'm happy to, work alongside, others in sitting down with the chamber people, or sitting down with the CHO, or whoever it is. Some of the advocates in town, also maybe some of the homeowners, of historic properties, sort of a natural constituency. But I do think we have some work to do, and I think that's why we really have to get command of the conversation. When we're talking about what is historic, what is architecturally significant, why, and also the value, which I spoke to last time, particularly the economic value, why this creates more tax revenue, why this creates more value for homes, why it's not necessarily punitive to what a homeowner can do. So I think that's what I would say, is sort of the objective of the next 4 to 6 months, and then hopefully we're in a better place to say, okay, now we think there's an achievable goal here.
How do we move this RFP forward, since we weren't able to get it to all the commissioners this time around? Is there a way that we can do this via email?
I apologize if I missed it, but I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, sorry, I thought I sent it to you on Monday.
I'll look again.
Okay.
And I will.
Maybe
What are we talking about? There's 2 projects here.
There's
splitting
Public
it.
education.
Yeah.
Both the public education and the intern will be separate
Well,
solicitations.
there's a public awareness RFP. The money is the same, it's one CPC project. We have 14,400, something like that, because we used 550 to pay for the website. So we thought we would take the 10,000 and look for a consultant to do some of the things that Thaddeus was just talking about, maybe even help us identify some more fund revenue sources. And then the other 4,000 would pay for an intern, for 8 or 10 weeks over the summer.
What are they gonna do?
Thaddeus, you want to talk? I thought that's what Thaddeus was just describing, is what he would.
Yeah, I mean, what I would do is, I would hopefully get, I think we would, get a college kid or a kid, maybe just out of college, somebody who's interested in going into PR and marketing and have them, work on content, particularly for social. So that would be like, unless we can, unless we can use the assets we already have, but I mean, I would think, just good photographs of historic assets or settings in the town that you can sort of use to talk about, hey, this is what this is and this is why preserving it is important, things along those lines. I mean, you could probably also get somebody to create, to work on some bullet points, some sort of talking points around the value of education, I think, on historic properties. I think we have a fair amount of that. I think we need more we need to build out a little more detail. I just think there's a lot of people who don't really understand the conversation.
So I want to do a level set about money.
Yeah, oh, Mr. Chair, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Your first question about procurement, that really goes through the town manager's office. So if you framed up what looks to be something that this commission is comfortable with, Mike can work with town manager's staff and get that kicked out.
I just want to make sure the commission is comfortable with it.
Well,
the
that's what I
part.
was gonna
Yeah,
say. I
Yeah.
mean, you could share it electronically. They can basically one individual reply back to you, not a reply all, but they could provide their comments that either they are comfortable with it as written or offer you edits. I'm mindful of the time, because you are not going to get all this done anywhere near guidance for an intern unless you kick it out now.
Yeah, but I also want to be level set about money. There are no funds if there's any output that takes place that costs money until June of '27.
Oh, I thought you had CPC funds already for this.
No,
Yeah,
we did not put in for this year.
Oh.
So anything that the output
Okay.
takes place here, there's no ability to execute it if it
I'm
costs money.
sorry, I'm not sure that's right. I think the public awareness money is FY '26 money, and we were concerned about getting it spent by the end of June.
I understand we have 14,400.
Yeah, right.
There is nothing on the current, there's nothing that went to CPC for this year, for next year. So once we spend that, if we spend 4,000 on an intern and 10,000 on a consultant, whatever that output is, there is no funds of any kind available until July of '27.
Right, from CPC.
And that's assuming CPC does it and the select board agrees to it and the town passes it.
Yeah, that's from CPC,
So-
but that doesn't stop us from using the 10,000 to
Right.
identify others.
Right. So again, if that's your intent to use what you have approved.
Right.
And it fits with that scope.
Yeah.
Then you could take what you've written as a RFP request, and I don't think it even has to come to RFP, I think it's just a request for quotes.
Yeah.
But Ed, we're
But then the
talking
second,
about spending all the money.
Yeah,
10,000 on a consultant.
Right.
4,000 on an intern, and then there's nothing.
can I just
right.
jump in?
There's nothing for, because we didn't ask for any more for fiscal year '27. I
That's
get it,
correct.
I understand, but what's,
So I'm wondering if the money we're going, I understand what the consultant money will do.
Yeah.
Okay, because that'll get us a plan that we can put in for a detailed request. It's not, whenever we do it, probably for next spring. I'm not sure whatever the output is from the consultant, I'm not sure what we're gonna do with that.
well, I think there's a couple of things. There are things that the commission can do ourselves, hopefully. There are, as I said, that we've identified some other potential sources of funds that we could potentially ask for other grants.
What other funds?
So, help me out here, Thaddeus, there
Well,
were two
the
specific ones.
national, I've been in touch with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and they have they have funding for the kind of efforts that, I described around awareness toward, preservation in communities, towns and cities. And I think, I think those are, it'd be nice to talk to, other folks about, those sorts of opportunities. But this one seemed to be, at least the way they communicated to me was that, you'd be a reasonable candidate for that, given what you want to do.
But what's the timing and application process? Because these things don't tend to happen quickly.
Yeah, it's over the next, I think between now and June.
And there was.
I don't know
But we're
how
not gonna
extensive.
get, we're not gonna get output from from an intern until the end of the summer.
Well, no, I mean.
At the
well,
earliest.
Well, I mean, if you hire an intern in May or June, you get them, for 8 weeks.
If I can, Mr. Chair, on the intern, typically what I've seen with town interns, we haven't got a lot of experience, but they actually are town employees.
Right.
They have to be documented, they get the tax forms, withholdings if necessary.
Understood.
So someone needs to write up what the duties of that intern would be.
Right. Yeah.
How they'd be evaluated, what the reporting would be. So we don't just do the old days of a college kid looking to do a
Right.
few weeks. This is, we have to.
Understood, and there's a
actually-
certain part of that $4,000 that's gonna have to go to overhead, that's gonna be covered,
Right,
yeah, I
right.
understand all of that.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is get the commission to okay the.
I'm hearing you, but I just want you to
Yeah.
know, I
Right.
think the town from staff and anything I can do to help move this, but you guys have to be on the same page.
Right, yeah,
My point of view, and I'll just say, we should put the whole 14,400 for consultant. We should get a detailed plan that we can come forward with and go to CPC. I think the money for the intern, when it's all said and done, I don't think we're gonna get much out of it. Just because there's no, even if they come up with brilliant things, there's no money to implement it. And that's my point of view.
You don't
But here, let me just say this, here's one, very piece of low-hanging fruit. We have, Orleans, the town of Orleans on Instagram, and we have the Orleans Cultural District on Instagram. We are producing 0 content for those channels. So there's no, they're obvious, there's no, we're getting occasionally from Amanda, it's Amanda, I think, some historic nods. But we're doing nothing, and we're not creating any, we're not creating that. Somebody could come in over 6 weeks and knock out a ton of content that we could use over the next, 8 months, if you wanted to.
right, and you don't need to pay a consultant for that. So I don't think that the difference that we would get for the extra $4,000 to a consultant would give us a better payback than using it to get an intern if we have some specific things we would like that intern to do.
If there's a proposal for an intern that's specific for Instagram or something like that, it's worth considering, figuring out how much the intern's gonna get paid, figuring out 30% for overhead that you gotta put into that.
Staff will take care of
I
it.
understand, I don't know how far $4,000 goes. I
It's
guess
not gonna
is
go
what I'm
very
saying.
far. If you do the math, I checked with OCT, they pay their intern $18 an hour. And they have the person for their interns for 10 weeks.
Right.
So if you do the math, we would probably get an intern, depending on how much the overhead is, for 8 weeks or so at 20 hours a week or whatever,
Still
something.
ever be, I think it'll be 30%, maybe they changed the number, but that's what they used to use for that.
Yeah. I was hoping the town was a little lower. That's like a private sector, but maybe it's higher, I don't really know. Anyway, I would like to be able to go forward with this and would ask the commission to approve for Thaddeus to move forward with both initiatives, subject to circulation of what the consultant RFP looks like, and anybody could get back to me on whether they have issues with it. If everyone is okay with it, then then we'll go forward with it. Is that, will that work?
Well, you'll get feedback.
Yeah.
Some may be good, some may be bad.
Right.
What are you gonna do with that at that point?
I'm
'Cause
gonna-
there's no commission vote at that point.
Right, well, what I'd like to do is take the vote now, and if anybody has a veto, I'll just stop. If people don't veto it, but they have input, I'll incorporate the input, if that's all right with everybody. I just don't think we can wait another month
No.
and be able to move this forward. We just don't have the time.
The other thing you could do also, Mr. Chair, is if you get feedback that is so in disagreement or challenging, you could always just do a quick Zoom special meeting
Okay,
and have that one topic. You would have to post it, 2 days in advance, but you could just say, finalize you know, procurement for public education. So you can have that one public meeting by Zoom only and get it done.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, so would somebody move that we can move the project forward, subject to review by the individual members?
Is this for both the consultant and the intern, or
Yes,
just the intern?
I will, both. I will circulate what we think will be the responsibilities of the intern, and then people can comment on both of those, and if we need to.
So moved.
All right. Second?
Seconded.
All right, all in favor? Oh,
Aye.
Thaddeus,
Okay.
Bill?
Bill, Charles,
That's okay.
Bruce,
Aye.
Ed, aye, okay, 500. Thank you all. All right, so we've got to get some motion on that, and maybe Thaddeus, if you don't mind, thinking, putting together what you think the intern should do, and then I'll get from Mike what the formal documents are that we have to submit, and we can put that together.
Okay.
Okay, where does that leave us? Moving to new business.
Let me stop for a second. I think I saw something in here that we got a document request for a lawyer. Am I right, or did I read that? I thought I read
No,
something.
that, Mike alluded to that earlier, I think. That was the Freedom of Information Act request about the, what our process is for putting something on.
No, there were a lot of there were a lot of requests in there. It was like 2 pages worth of requests. So I'm just wondering how we're dealing with that, because we're dealing with a lawyer who's asked for something from a legal background. I think we should, I don't know how we're dealing with it.
I'm not sure that's in the packet. What's
I
in the
read
packet
it
is-
someplace. I don't know where else I would have read it.
It's also not on your agenda, so.
What is
It's
on the
not-
agenda is the notice of intent, is that what you're referring to?
I had to have read it from here somewhere, because I don't know where else I would have read it from, that there was a request from Freedom of Information Act.
We discussed that as part of agenda item 2 on 8 Cascade Gansett Road, but it's not in the packet.
Okay, so that's part of that request for that?
It accompanied that request.
Do we have to respond to that before we have the meeting next week, or a month from now?
If it's existing records,
It's been handled by.
it's handled
the
by
town.
the town clerk. She is our records officer.
Yes.
Okay.
If the request was specific to any stuff that you might have sent emails, clerk would have asked you for production of whatever the bounds of that request were.
Okay.
And I assume that includes videotapes of the public meetings, right?
Those are public materials.
They
They can just go look at them, okay. All right, anybody want to bring up new business? Future items, we have property owner engagement and encouragement, so we'll talk about that next time, depending on time available. Otherwise, our next meeting is 3 weeks from, I assume is it 3 weeks from today? It sounds like it would be 4, the 6th of
May.
May.
4 weeks.
4 weeks from today. First Wednesday, not the second Wednesday of May. And
At
that will be
3:30.
At 3:30, not 3 o'clock, and that will be a hearing as well as a regular meeting.
So that's the last point for next meeting. Do we want to do a full meeting on the 6th, or just the hearing on the 6th, and then meet again on the 13th?
What does everybody feel like? One meeting, get it out of the way?
I'd prefer one meeting.
Let's do one meeting and get it out of the way. It's painful, but it's better than not to spread out the pain.
So we'll start at 3:30, and the hearing will be the first major agenda item.
Yeah. And again, if it's not full demolition, I would hope it would not take that long. Okay, well, thank you all. I know these last couple of meetings have been, a lot of work.
Why
Exciting.
we raise our hand.
All right, thanks, Thaddeus.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Move to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.